I was driving to the beach, and I went 30 minutes in the wrong direction, and I had missed my exit. And being the man that I am, who wants to be wrong, I just kept going because I knew I was right. Anybody ever been there before? And so I recognized, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make a U-turn. And the next day, I was sitting on the beach, and I started thinking, in life, what happens when we never make the U-turn? I mean, everybody take your right hand, point to yourself, and say, Simon says, U-turn. What's so interesting about that, a number of years ago, Mom and Dad dropped me off at Morehouse College. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, the third poorest city in America. Go Bills, this could be the year! Some of you looked at me like, seriously, dude, really? Whatever. So they dropped me off at Morehouse College, and at the end of my freshman year at Morehouse, they called and said, we don't have the money to send you back to Morehouse, nor do we have money to bring you back home to Buffalo, but we do love you. And I dropped out of Morehouse, moved into a drug-infested community in the southwest part of Atlanta, Georgia, only had a mattress on the floor, bright green beanbag from the 70s, couple milk crates turned over with a black and white TV on top of it with a hanger hanging out of the back of the TV with a piece of aluminum foil wrapped around the hanger. How many have a visual so far? I wasn't poor, I was po. That's 2 levels below. I felt sorry for me. And I eventually did go back to school. I was just on the 10-year plan. And my parents said, it took you 10 years to finish your degree. I said, because you didn't pay. But I love you. And one of the greatest lessons that I learned during that time is I was suffering from what I call the CIC. Everybody say CIC. CIC stands for Comparison Inferiority Complex. Because I was comparing where I was at that stage in life to where everyone else was that had finished their undergrad degree in 4 years, and I was comparing, why am I not successful? What happened to me? And it was just a really sad state of affairs. And during that time, I went and got a job at the Days Inn Hotel, making a whopping $5.10 an hour where they left the light on for me. And I got offered to go and work at the Ritz-Carlton Buckhead, which is, at that time, was the flagship hotel for Ritz-Carlton. And I went to the interview with Ritz-Carlton. They said, we really want you to come here, but being born in the ghetto of Buffalo, New York, living in the ghetto of Atlanta, I didn't have a concept of what a Ritz-Carlton was. You know, because they hit me up and said, you know, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. I thought next, Ben, they would ask me, would you please pass the Grey Poupon, you know? And so I went back to Days Inn. I stayed there. And what I recognized many years later, it's not who you are that holds you back from brilliant success. It's who you think you're not that holds you back. And sometimes we focus on who we think we're not instead of who we are. When you begin to understand that you are absolutely positively brilliant, you begin to recognize everything that you need to succeed at every age and every stage is inside of you. A lot of my work over the last few years has been around this whole concept of brilliance. Everybody say, Simon says, I am brilliant. Now we're going to say it again with power, feeling, conviction. I know it's early in the morning. I want you to use your outdoor voice indoor, find your inner chutzpah, and on 3 says, Simon says, I am brilliant. 1, 2, 3. All right, turn to your neighbor and say, I'm brilliant, but I'm a little concerned about you, okay? I am brilliant. Which one of y'all kicked me, all right? So, when I first started writing and talking about brilliance, I based it on some of the research work of Dr. Howard Gardner, who is professor of education at Harvard. Dr. Gardner and his team of researchers did an interesting study over a 20-plus year period, and what they discovered is that children up until the age of 4 are operating at the genius level. The same group of children were studied in their early 20s, and only 10% were still operating at the genius, or what I call the brilliance level. And in their late 20s, early 30s, only 2% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level. So the question that you have, like I had, oh, brilliant one, you do know that you're sitting next to oh, brilliant one, right? Just look at your neighbor and say, good morning, oh, brilliant one. Good morning. Somebody said, I'm glad you finally recognize. You may be slow, but they're worth waiting on. So the question you have, like I had, is where did this genius or brilliance go? It didn't go anywhere, but it became buried by a society that says color within the line, sit down, give it back, you can't do this. And the more you continue to hear what you can't do, where you can't go, and who you can't become, there is a neurological path that is created in the brain that causes individuals to shut down. So people have this potential, they have this insight, they have this genius, they have this ability to succeed, but they show up at a place called work. Or they show up in an environment that doesn't get them. So what I've understood is that men and women who shift their brilliance understand that their brilliance is released in an environment where they are celebrated rather than tolerated. And when I'm in an environment that celebrates me rather than tolerates me, that environment invites me to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin. And when I understand how to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin, I really understand that I exist at this period in history not to make an impression, but to leave an imprint. What started me on this journey a number of years ago, I was sitting at my desk at the happiest place on earth called the Walt Disney World Resort as the sales director of the Disney Institute. And whenever you work at Disney, Mickey Mouse rule number one is you never talk to the media. Well, somebody spiked my coffee that day and I decided to talk to the media. So a journalist called me and said, Simon, where do you see yourself 10 to 15 years from now? I said, I see myself as the president and CEO of the Walt Disney World Resort and eventually the chairman and CEO of the Walt Disney Company. He puts this in print. So this article comes out, page 12, Florida Business Trend magazine, February 2002. You can still Google it to this day. And my boss calls me in the office and he's like, dude, help me. What were you thinking when you did this interview? And I said, Larry, I work at this company whose motto is, if your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme, for when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. But obviously it does here. So, it's funny today, it was not funny then. So a couple of hours later, HR shows up, and they said, we need you to sign a little piece of paper. And so I signed this little piece of paper that went into my personal file, and let's just say Disney didn't fire me that day. But about a year later, I heard the footsteps coming, and they were not singing, "It's a Small World After All." So what I began to discover in that moment was never ignore an expiration date. Because there's a song that I learned years ago, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be plenty of time for counting when the dealing's done. You ought to know a brother, know a little country, huh? So there will come a moment when you are being invited to go to another dimension, but you will have to let go of what no longer works. And when you begin to let go and never let things move past an expiration date, what you're really saying is that I am setting in motion those things that want me. Because what you want wants you. Florence Shin, in her book, How to Play the Game of Life and Win, the book was first imprinted in 1925, makes a very powerful statement. She says, the phone was seeking the bell. The tire was seeking the car. The computer was seeking the internet. What you want wants you. So when you know it's time to let go, you can let come what wants to emerge. And so I recognized that I had worked at Disney, great company, I learned a lot, but I reached a place, well, it no longer worked for me. And I had to let it go. I had to walk away. I cashed in my entire 401k with significant Disney stock, took out a line of credit on the house, turned down 4 jobs, and I did it right when our country was going to war with Iraq for the second time, and corporations were laying off by the hundreds of thousands. I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there will never be a perfect time for you to become the person you were meant to be. Everybody that has been assigned to aid and help you on the path to your brilliance, the moment you make a U-turn, the moment you say yes to yourself, do you know that research says that by the time a child is 17 years of age, they have heard no 150,000 times and only yes 5,000 times. So the moment you say yes to yourself, everyone that has been assigned to aid and help you, when you get to a place called there, they will be there, but you get there in here. And when you get there in here, it is an alignment of head, everybody say head, heart, and hands. When I have an alignment of head, heart, and hands, my feet will follow. But here's what I've discovered on the journey. Rejection can be the greatest gift. Have you ever experienced rejection before? So I leave Disney, turn down 4 jobs. I've got about a 3-year runway for this to work. If it doesn't work, I got to go crawling back. Please, Mickey, I need my job. And I'm out here, and there's an organization called the $1 Million Roundtable, which is very prestigious in the financial and insurance industry. And anyone in my speaking profession really sees speaking at the $1 Million Roundtable as a rites of passage. They've had some of the best. I submitted my video for 10 years straight, and I was rejected 10 years straight. I would get a Dear John email, sorry, we didn't select you. Please submit a proposal next year. And for 10 years straight, I said, seriously, really? Was it the spinach in my teeth? Well, like, what's up, right? And I started beating myself up, and I happened to be thinking about what could we do, was talking with our team, and we said, what if we got a coach? And we just didn't get one coach, we got 2 coaches. And the coaches began to help me understand my areas of opportunity and my blind spots. And here's what I discovered. What you don't deal with will eventually deal with you. I'm going to say that again. What you don't deal with will eventually deal with you. When it is time for you to make a U-turn and shift into your brilliance, we will have to come to a place where we're willing to do the work. And when I recognized that I wasn't all that in a bag of chips, that I had some ugly babies, that I had some things I needed to deal with, all of a sudden when we submitted the video the next year, $1 Million Roundtable said, we have looked at 800 videos, and out of 800 videos, we have selected you as our #1 speaker. To address 9,000 people from 72 nations in Toronto, Canada. And what I recognized, the 10 years of rejection were totally worth it, because rejection was the gift to invite me to step up. Just because, how many of you are in sales? How many of you are in sales? Let me just say this to all of you that are in sales. Just because you are rejected, no doesn't mean no against you. It just means no, not now, or there's another way to go. Because catch this, the fortune is in the follow-up. How bad do you want it? And so I realized when I begin to do that work, amazing things begin to happen. But the other interesting thing, so we go and we do $1 Million Roundtable, we're experiencing success, it was really cool, totally awesome. But I got off course because I discovered that relationships are more important than money. I have gone through a divorce within the last year, and my 2 children, Daniel and Madison, they are now my greatest joys. And I recognize that everything I do is about really impacting them, because I was so busy trying to make so much money that my ladder was against the wrong wall. And their mother said to me, you give everybody the best of you, but you give us the rest of you, and I don't want the leftovers anymore. And what I recognized, I was modeling something for Daniel and Madison that you got to go after it. You got to get all this stuff. And I had the house, but I lost the home. I had success, but I had no significance. I had power, but I had no purpose. And I had money, but I had no meaning. And when I say relationships are more important than money, I have discovered that relationships is really the currency of the future. Because if you have relationships, you can get money. And I recognize if I didn't change my behavior, that I am modeling something for Madison, my baby girl, that it's okay to marry a joker that's never around. And now when Madison, one of the other areas that I'm working on is Madison came into my office not too long ago, and she said, "Hey, Daddy, what's going on?" I said, "Hey, baby girl, how are you?" And I was preparing to go on a trip out of town. And I was busy scurrying around. I was not totally focused on her. And she says to me, "Daddy, I see you're busy. I'll just come back later." And I said, "Okay, baby girl." And I get on the plane later on, and it hit me that I missed the moment for spending that quality time with my baby girl because I was emotionally clueless and emotionally unavailable. And what I discovered, if I continued to model that behavior for my baby girl, that she would marry a joker like me who ignored her like her dad did. So what I recognized is that I had to move from hearing Madison to listening to Madison, because the same letters that spell the word listen spell the word silent. And when I have that time with my baby girl, I'm dialing in, "How are you?" And I'm modeling something for her brother as to how he's supposed to treat a woman. What I have discovered is that sometimes women don't need us to fix anything. They just want to know, are we emotionally available and emotionally dialed in to know where they are? I know y'all think we're going to take up an offering in a moment, so. So now I, through pain, I'm learning that relationships are more important than money. So I want to let you know, I love you, I believe in you, and there's not a darn thing you can do about it. We love you because success believes in you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.